For 4 decades, Cardiovascular Institute of the South and Terrebonne General Health System have partnered to deliver a legacy of cardiovascular innovation. We lead the state in advanced programs and complex procedures that you won't find anywhere else. Our specialized treatments for peripheral vascular disease, artery and vein disease, heart valve and structure conditions, arrhythmias, and more attract patients from around the world. Together, we deliver the cardiovascular care that you deserve. Visit tgncis.com to learn more.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you're joining us, and very glad to have with me the anchor of the day, Ms. Micaiah Jackson. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
All right, we appreciate that very much. And also very glad to have with us Blake Tabor, Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me as always.
All right, we appreciate it very much. Let's start with some information on this recent arrest.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting arrest. We got a little bit of interest on this when we talked about it on Facebook. So ultimately, the week prior to Christmas, we had a burglary in progress at a local business in the 3800 block of West Main Street. As we were responding to that location, we received a secondary call from an employee who happened to be monitoring some cameras that were newly implemented at that business in response to some previous burglaries that had taken place over the last couple weeks prior to this complaint.
Oh, wow.
So once we arrived there, we realized, and there were several indicators, that the suspect was possibly still inside the fenced-in area and the building of this particular location. So again, anytime we have that, additional units are arriving, K-9 division, narcotics division, patrol division, you name it, they are coming, right? So as we had the place surrounded, pretty slippery suspect. He was actually able to get out of the fence line, the same where he broke into, and receded into a local wooded area where our K-9s gave chase. Ultimately, we know what typically happens when K-9s give chase. There was, a bite that was inflicted on the suspect where he received some minor injuries. Ultimately, he was transported to a local medical facility and treated for those. Nothing serious, of course. Ultimately, we questioned him. Detectives brought him in. He ultimately admitted to being responsible not only for this one, but for several other copper burglaries that were taking place at the same business.
Wow.
So it's my understanding he was very forthcoming with that information, was very apologetic, which again, we don't see very often.
Yeah.
And ultimately at the culmination of all this, he was charged with 3 counts of simple burglary, and he was jailed at the complex, which it's my understanding that he is still incarcerated on a $150,000 bond.
Right, and we know him as Anthony Joseph Hickman Jr.
Anthony Joseph Hickman Jr., 46. You see him photographed here.
Right. And again, a unique scenario, right? When, I guess getting caught one thing, right?
Sure.
Being chased and, any of us being chased by a dog is concerning.
Very
Absolutely.
scary.
But you're caught and bit and you're like, okay, I'll tell you everything.
Sure.
Right. And he did.
And look, I have been bitten by a dog in a training situation. It is not fun.
Right.
But again, this is a tool in our toolbox, and these dogs and this K-9 division are consummate professionals, and they do everything the right way. This is the reason why we use K-9s, for this particular set of circumstances.
Right. Very important to be able to do. You guys, first and foremost, thank you for the service and for the years of service. But over the year, you guys have done a particularly good job. 2024 has been outstanding in us being able to identifying issues, address those issues, bringing people to a resolution of some of those problems. But Sheriff's kind of wanted to send out a message to us here at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I really think that this has been a monumental year for not only our agency, but for our community as a whole. I've been working in law enforcement going on 27 years, and the vast majority of that has been here in Terrebonne Parish with the exception of 5 years. And, you start to see the ebbs and flows of how the community relates to law enforcement relates to the community. And this year just seemed a little bit different. It seems like maybe that connection is starting to strengthen. The bond is starting to strengthen. It seems like we're starting to get some of that trust of the community back, and I think that's just through hard work and just efforts of transparency and just being there and doing the right thing. You know,
being present and developing trust, and that's
Absolutely.
really very important. We talk about it all the time about helping people. You got to develop trust, but you guys have been present, and y'all have certainly welcomed the community into this is what we're doing. This is why. We'll be glad to take your input too.
Absolutely. And look, and it's not always about taking one person's side or the other. It's about doing what's fair and just.
Right.
And, you know, that by definition is hard sometimes, but I think we're making it work, and I think the community is understanding that. So we're looking forward to a prosperous 2025.
Right. So as the year comes to an end, people are always wanting to celebrate. We talk just in general about what the recommendations are from the sheriff's office and some of the guidelines and some of the laws.
Absolutely. So fireworks, again, that's the hot topic, right? From dusk starting tomorrow on Tuesday the 31st until 1 a.m. on January 1st, which is Wednesday morning. From that New Year's Day, it'll be from dusk till 10 p.m. Again, no fireworks are going to be permitted after that or in the city limits of Houma. If you have any questions about that, you can look on the websites for HPD or the sheriff's office, and you can find sort of those jurisdictional boundaries there and determine whether you're in the city or not. Again, safety tips, make sure we're not lighting fireworks impaired. We're monitoring and supervising our children. We have a way to extinguish those things before we put them into a trash can, because that can always create secondary fires. Again, I'm not a fireman, and I don't pretend to be, but those are some of the more important things we need to take care of.
Yeah, make sure things are distinguished completely extinguished.
Absolutely.
And if they're not, they can reignite.
Absolutely.
Make sure they're put out with water. Make sure that there's, good ways to be able to do that. Again, the fire department will address a lot of those things with us, which we're very glad for. But again, just using good sense about what to do around family. And a good recommendation, you know what, if you want to have fireworks because you're celebrating, it's fine. Maybe choose one or the other. Either we have a designated driver and we're drinking, or we're doing fireworks. Let's put somebody in charge of fireworks that's not drinking.
Absolutely. And look, and it could be as simple as a sparkler. People don't realize that it's 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm sure the fire department can allude more to that, but we always put those in the child's hand, and that could be very dangerous.
It can be. Lieutenant, we thank you so very much for
Thank you
everything.
for
Thanks for
having
this
me.
year,
Thank
and always for the updates.
Thanks so much.
All right, guys, that will do it for this particular segment, but don't go anywhere. A whole lot more right here on Bayou Time.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.